stage 2, we're going to create online forms using form objects, also called form fields. Open up your Join the Club HTML page in your Cupcake site, and we're going to switch to Design View. We're going to use our Insert panel and make sure you switch to Form, and we're going to input some form fields. Click the Form button and drag it under the paragraph after the Join the Sassy Club text. And now you'll see a form field created. Click the field to insert your cursor so we're within the editable region. And I'm going to bring up the Properties panel. In this Form ID section, we're going to type in Register so that we know we're giving the name to this form. And in the Action field, we're going to type in mail to, colon, and just type in a fake email address here. If you were creating a form for your personal site, you could input your own email address. If it was for a professional site, then you would input your client's or company's email. And when you input this email address in the action field, when the user submits the form, their default email will open up and create the message within this form. We're going to leave everything else as default, and we can look in our code here where it says form action. We have our mail to line, the method, and it's given an ID of register, and then our closing form tag. And we're going to place more elements within these form tags. We go back to our Insert panel and select Text, and we're going to drag the text right into our form element. Let's look at our code again. We have a label for our text field, and then we have the input type, so it's a text field, and then a name and an ID within our form tags. We're going to change the name field and call it, instead of text field, we're going to type in first name. Press return, and then we can actually change the text label here. You can change it here or in the code. I'm going to type in first name, and now you can see in the code the label is now changed to first name. With our form field selected, I'm going to check required, and then in the code you can see the required ID, and once that code is there, it is a Boolean attribute, which means that is either true or false. So when you have a required element ID in your code, then it is automatically a true attribute, and that just means that it's a required field. So users are required to fill that in. We're going to place our cursor within the field. We're going to place our cursor after the field and hit return to create a new. Back to our Insert panel, we're going to select another text field and place it in our form. And this time we're going to give it a label of last name, and we can also change that here. So this is our label, and then in the actual field, that's our input area. So if we look at the code again, we see the label is labeled last name, the input type is text, and the name and the ID are also. Create a new paragraph again and insert text. And this time we're going to label it company. In the text field, we're going to replace that text with company name, parentheses required. I'm going to create a new paragraph after that text field, and in the Insert panel, we're going to click the Email button, to insert an email. With the email input area selected, I'm going to select required also for email. And then in the insert panel, I'm going to click on password. And when an input tag uses the password attribute, the text will appear as asterisks or dots, so it will be hidden to protect the password. See that code for the password input type, and then you can save the file and create another paragraph after the company name. In the insert panel, go to the select button and drag that into the empty paragraph space. And we're going to create a list selection using the select tag. And the select tag will let you input a menu of options for the user to select. It can be a drop-down menu or list object. So we're going to change this field label to where were you born. We're going to change the field name to birthday. And you can see that's updated in the code under select name. With the field highlighted or selected, I'm going to click on list values in the properties panel and click in the box or click on the add button on a Mac, and we can type in our list items here. So we're just going to go through the months of the year and hit tab, and we can give it a value with the shortened name. So go ahead and go through and type the months in. For the last field, type in select with no value. And you can click on the up arrow to move that select item to the top of the menu and click OK. Choose select in the properties panel. And we can look at the code. All of these months are input as select options, and the select name is set as a required field, so that will automatically be selected. Now we want to create a checkbox. Now we want to create a checkbox after the first name element, or sorry, before the first name element. I'm going to hit a return, and in the insert panel, I'm going to look for my checkbox element and insert that. I want to change the field name. So if we look at the code, the input type is checkbox, and the name is agree, or the name of the label. And then we want to actually type in after label for agree, yes, I want to join the Sassy Club. Remember that the value is the field that defines what will be sent to the server when the form is submitted. We want to create a new field after the last paragraph. And we want to go to our insert panel and drag on the submit button. In the properties panel, we want to type sign me up in the value. The value field defines the text that appears on the button. So now instead of submit, the sign me up text appears on the button. Now we want to go back to insert and drag the reset button right after the submit button. I'm going to switch to live view. And remember that the form tag encloses the entire form, so that's the opening tag, and the closing tag over this entire form element. The input tag identifies each form object. Then the select tag helps to create that drop-down menu or selection list, and the label tag creates the text that identifies form fields, including the text of the checkboxes. The value is what you actually input to replace the text on top of the button. Now select the label for the checkbox field. When you select it, it will automatically check it in live view, and that's okay, so we're just going to select it for now and go to the CSS Designer panel and select Current, and that shows only the selectors related to the current insertion point or cursor, whatever you have selected. And now if I've selected the entire element for the checkbox and the ID selector right column with the paragraph tag is highlighted, we're going to click the paragraph tag in the tag selector and then choose heading 2 in the format menu to format it to the heading 2. I'm going to go back to CSS Designer and turn off the current mode and click the Add Selector button, and I'm going to add a selector called Input, and I'm going to give it a width under Layout of 100%, bottom margin of 10, float it to the left, and clear both by selecting Edit Rule under CSS. The input objects are now attached to the left edge of their containers, and the clear property should force the labels into their own lines. Create another tag selector called Label and give it a width of 100%, float it to the left. Now we're going to create a new class selector with the period and call it No Clear. And we're going to format that to a width of auto and the clear of none. And that allows the object to occupy only the space that's necessary. So in live view, I'm going to select the checkbox and input the No Clear class. I'm going to add the No Clear class to that element. And now for the select element, I want to apply that class as well. And then also apply that to both buttons in the bottom of the form. Now we're going to go up to View, Live View Options, and hide Live View Displays so we can see this more accurately. And that hides the element highlighting that occurs when you click a selector in the CSS Designer panel, as well as the element displays in live view. We can continue to format, and we can turn that view back on so we can see the frames. And again, we can get rid of some of the extra spacing here. Hide live view displays again. And there we have our final form. Save the HTML and the CSS files. You can close the HTML file and export using your managed sites and export it as an STE file.